Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Exploring Photography right here on Adorama TV. I'm Mark Wallace and we are continuing our series of the basics of studio lighting principles. These are the tools that you use to build and shape light in the studio. Now this week we're going to be talking about something called the effective size of light. It's important because it helps us determine which kind of light modifier to use and where to put that light modifier, and it determines how our light looks, if it's hard or soft, contrasty or not. It really has a huge impact on your photos. Now to illustrate this, take a look at this. I have this softbox right here and notice it's about the same size as this umbrella right here. Or is it? Of course it's not. If I bring it closer, look, it's much larger. In fact, this umbrella back here is much, much larger than this softbox. And that is how effective size works. The closer your light is to your subject, the larger effectively your light source is, and that changes everything. Now to understand this, what I've done is I've created an animation. In fact, I created this for my Studio Lighting Essentials workshop, but we're going to use that here this week in this episode. So let's take a look at that so you can understand all of these different terms and principles. So let's take a look right now.
There are lots of words that photographers use to describe light. Let's start by talking about two of the most common terms in studio lighting: hard light and soft light. The best way to tell if light is hard or soft is by looking at the shadows it casts. Hard light casts a very clearly defined shadow. Its edges are hard. Soft light casts a shadow that's hard to tell where it starts and stops. Its edges are soft. On a day where the sky is clear, the sun will throw a concentrated beam of light that will produce deep, sharp shadows on the subject. This is hard light. But if the clouds come out, then the light becomes diffused. Instead of the light traveling in the same direction, it is cast in different directions, and the source of the light becomes much larger. A larger light source will throw a wider beam of light with shadows that are more open because light is bouncing around and spilling into the shadows. This is soft light. An important term is effective size. The effective size of a light is based both on the physical size of the light and its position in relation to the subject. In other words, the closer a light is to the subject, the larger its effective size and the softer the light will be. The farther away a light is from the subject, the smaller the effective size and the harder the light will be. To illustrate this point, let's look at the sun. Although the sun is 100 times the width of the Earth, it looks like a tiny speck in the sky. That's because it's 93 million miles from the Earth. This makes the sun's effective size very small, and therefore it gives off very hard light. Now, if we were able to move the sun very close to the Earth, its effective size would be much larger, and the light it casts would be much softer. We can change the quality of light by changing the effective size of our light source. Since moving the sun closer to the Earth would be impossible, and a really bad idea, there is another way to modify our light source. We can use modifiers. Now let's bring back the clouds. In this scenario, the sun would be the light source, and the clouds would be a light modifier. The sun lights up the clouds, and the clouds become a huge light over the Earth. Now our illumination is the entire sky, not just the tiny dot of the sun. The effective size of the light is much larger, and the light is much softer. Sometimes, soft light is called diffused light, and hard light is called harsh light. Contrast is the difference between the darkest and lightest areas in an image. The greater the difference, the higher the contrast. In much the same way, you can change how hard or soft a light is by moving a light closer or farther from the subject. You can also change the contrast of your image by changing the position of the light. When you position the light in front of your subject, you'll get a low contrast lighting. If you move your light to the side of the subject, you'll get a much higher contrast lighting.
All right, well, let's put those principles into practice without setting anybody on fire. And because we promised not to set Maria on fire here, she has said she would be our model for this video. Now, what we're going to do is I'm just going to show you a very simple demonstration between a small light source and a large light source and show you how the effective size changes the quality of light. Now, to do that, we're going to start with a very small light. This is a Profoto B2 head. Notice how that is very small compared to my hand, and that's going to be what we start with. Now, I've already metered this, and so I'm going to shoot this at f8. And so Maria's just going to look straight at me, and I'm going to focus this really quickly and click. All right, now when we look at this, you can see that that light is very hard and directional. So we have really, really hard shadow underneath her chin. You've got this really hard shadow on the background, and that is not necessarily what I want. I want to change the quality of my light, and to do that, I'm going to change the effective size of my light by using this Octabox. Now what this is, notice that it is larger than Maria's head. So what will happen here is when we put this on our light, it's going to actually surround her, and so we're going to have light that's going to be falling into the shadows. That's going to open up those shadows and create soft light. So I'm going to just put this on my light really fast. So I'm making my light much larger, so the effective size is larger. Our light quality is going to be softer. Now, because I put a softbox on my light, I need to re-meter this. And so we'll go in here. Now I shot the first shot at f8. I'm going to meter this really fast and see if we can get that at f8. So we're almost there. So now again, okay, now we're at f8. So we'll shoot that. So I'll zip over here. And then Maria, we're going to have you look right at me again. And we're going to shoot the same picture. So both of these are at f8. Get a little closer so the softbox doesn't show up in the shot. Perfect. Okay, so now when we look at these two pictures back to back, you can see that the shadows, specifically over here, are dramatically different. The large softbox gives us a much softer light because of the effective size of the light. Now, what about contrast and the position of light? Well, instead of moving my light around, the light is always in relationship to the camera when we're talking about position of light. So if my light is here, my camera is here, if I move my camera, it's the same as moving my light, and so that's what I'm going to do. So instead of being right here, straight on, I'm going to move over here to the side, and so now this light is coming to the side of Maria, and that's going to give us really contrasty light. And so because the light hasn't changed in relationship to our model, the metering doesn't have to change. But when we look at that, wow, the contrast has really gone up. So this side of her face is illuminated, this side of her face is dark. So our contrast has changed dramatically. Now let's go over here. So Maria, let's have you look straight at this light. I'm gonna have to raise this up a little bit so I can actually shoot underneath this. So I'm gonna try to do this as much of the same as possible. Okay, so still at f8. Now I'm shooting right underneath the light. So we're right in alignment with the light. So Maria, perfect. Again, at f8, I'll take that shot, and what a difference that makes. So let's take a look at these shots. So that first shot, we have hard, contrasty light. The second shot, we have much softer light. And we looked at the contrast, and just by changing the position of my camera, which essentially is the same thing as changing the position of the light, I'm able to take that contrast and lower it and get this really beautiful shot. And I think you'll agree that the final shot is much better than the shot we began with. All right, well, there you have it. The effective size of the light and the position of the light really changed the quality of the light. Now, to put all of this stuff into practice, we're going to take it up a notch in the next episode. So Maria has been a fantastic model today, but in the next couple of episodes, you're going to really see how these lighting principles will bring our light shaping to life. So don't miss out. In fact, you can make sure you don't miss out by subscribing to Adorama TV. It's absolutely free, and your life will be so much better if you just click the subscribe button, and that way you get all of the content that everybody produces absolutely free. So click subscribe right now. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you again next week.